Penn has slipped over the edge of the ice, into the inky black water beneath.
I was submerged and was swimming up to my neck in water, fully clothed. I did not have the immersion suit on for this.
Without the immersion suit, he has less than 2 minutes to save himself.
Screaming for help is not going to do you a great deal of good, solo several hundred miles from the nearest human being. The only priority, total focus of everything you do until you are safe, is to get out of the water onto firm ice. You start to feel your energy go because you're thrashing around trying to get yourself up and out. If you aren't out in sort of 15 to 30 seconds, you have to kick into a different energy system. So you move away from the sort of fight or flight routine and you switch into a different system which can't deliver the same level of output of energy, and that's quite scary. So if you can get out in the first 10 or 15 seconds, that's good news. And I did. I found in the past, when I'm on solo expeditions, that I tend to create a bit of a household in my tent. Welcome to tent life. About minus 35, minus 30, minus 35. The first thing I'd like to do is to introduce you to my close friend, who's become a great support on the expedition. We met in Resolute. Her name is Mavis, and this is Mavis. She's a snowbrush, and as you can see, she's a blonde. She's an artificial blonde, bless her, and she's been a very busy girl on this expedition, brushing snow endlessly off me and my sleeping bag and my boots and their liners and gloves and mitts. We chat away and I do most of the chatting, but she talks back sometimes.
Is this the surviving ski?
This is the surviving ski, yes. And
because one of the things that complicated your efforts considerably was losing the other one. Yeah,
that's right. So I was forced to walk because you can't be able to go with one ski on.
And how heavy was what you were walking with?
Well, it started off at about nearly 20 stone, the sledge, and but by that stage, it's about day 45, I lost the ski, so it was down to about half that weight.
Well, do sit down. Make yourself.
Thanks very much.
You've earned a comfortable yellow sofa. Here's all of the other equipment here and so on. And you'd had this dream for 15 years.
Yes, I'd done a 70-day sledging journey that was unsupported, photographing polar bears, and it just, on the flight back in 1989, it suddenly occurred to me that I'd been on the sea ice for about 70 days in a different location in the Spitsbergen area, and that going to the North Geographic Pole was a sea ice journey of about 70 days duration, so I wasn't that far away from making it a reality.
And you had to swim through icy water on lots of occasions, but you had an immersion
suit, an all-in-one immersion suit, so I could take my skis off, keep my boots on, keep my mitts on, keep the clothing on, and just climb into it, zip it up, and the only thing that was left exposed was my face, actually just my nose and my mouth, with it using a drawstring to tighten it all around that. And then I'd lower myself either into water or into thin ice, punch my way through the thin ice, and then either have to break my way across this, a bit like a canal, 400 metres wide, 10 metres wide, whatever, and then climb out the other side, which was sometimes easy and sometimes quite scary, because 60 minutes in the water you get pretty cold and very tired if you're breaking through ice all the time.
My castaway this week is an adventurer. Last year he made history by becoming the first man to walk alone and unaided the 478 miles from the north coast of Canada to the North Pole, a journey that's been described as the greatest endurance feat on Earth. He is Penn Hadow. Penn, it took you 64 days from March to May last year to walk that walk, a long time to be alone in a hostile environment. You tell me it was at minus 46.5 degrees. What was the thing you were most frightened of during that journey?
Failure. Absolutely failure. It was my third attempt. For me, it was imperative that I succeeded. So I think fear of failure was probably the scariest thing. I mean, more obviously, there are lesser considerations.
What about Arctic things like polar bears?
Yeah, well, I'm so familiar with the ways of the polar bear, and it's a bit like Russian roulette. I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, rather. There are wheezes and ruses that one can use to deter them if they do make an approach. I've hit a bear on the head with a saucepan when I opened up the zip of my tent. I'd heard some crunching going around outside, but there are all sorts of things that can cause those sort of noises, so I was pretty nonchalant about it, and the bear's head was about a foot from the tent zip. I always have a loaded shotgun, but it was facing the wrong direction. I thought by the time I've reached forwards, reorientated the gun, cocked it, and stuck it out of the tent, that could be too late. So I grabbed the nearest heavy object that I could, which was a saucepan, and bashed the bear through the tent flap as hard as I could on the head.